I would try to have it make social media posts, and it always includes stupid emojis, usually a rocket ship emoji or a light bulb emoji. I'm like, I don't need a rocket ship or light bulb in this tweet. Please just give me a tweet. But like anytime you ask for a social media post, ChatGPT will be like, rocket ship, do you want to take off? And it's like, don't do rocket ships. I don't need a rocket ship emoji in this post, please.
That casts a different light into all of the stupid LinkedIn posters on Twitter right now.
Yeah, every post now on LinkedIn has a rocket ship. Every marketing email you have, if you look, will have a rocket ship. I bet if you searched in your email for rocket ship emoji, you'd probably get a bunch of AI generated text. Yeah. But anyway, so I would prompt and I would be like, no emojis. Do not use emojis. And it might do it for like one or two, but as the prompt got longer and I was editing it, it almost, what I realized is the more I talked about the use of emojis, the more it used emojis, even though I was saying do not do it. And I started calling it the pink elephant problem, where it's like, don't think about a pink elephant. Well, that's what you're thinking about. And I think LLMs similarly have that same problem, where if you say, hey, don't include any pink elephants in the output, it's always going to include a pink elephant in the output, right?
Yeah. No.
But yeah.
The pink elephant problem. You should write a paper for, how do you say it?
Yeah, we should put that out.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Shaolin AI podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing Agentive AI. Is that the word? I don't know. And function calling. We've been thinking about this a lot in some of the stuff we're building. And so we're going to be talking about it. But technically, you guys might not know who we've got today. And I've got Drew. Hey, Drew, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Drew is a key member of the Shaolin team. Probably the key member, I would say. It makes everything work.
So far.
Yeah. And so today we're kind of starting a new series, so to speak, where we're going to start talking about some of the stuff going on in the AI space. So this may be a bit too technical for people who have no clue what we're talking about. But we kind of wanted to start putting out some content just for people who want to talk about AI. But let's get into it. Let's just start instead of talking about what it's going to be. But basically, what I would say, what we're going to talk about today is a lot of people use LLMs, and a lot of people use it. I'd say the two main uses for LLMs right now is, one, I want to ask a question. And so they ask the question to the AI, they get the answer. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, right? That's the main use case. And that comes from essentially ChatGPT being the biggest player and the popularizer of these types of models. Now, you can actually do more than just ask questions, right? And I would say the main use case people have figured out is not only can you ask questions, but you can have it write code for you, right? So that's, a lot of people are used to AI writing code and answering questions. Outside of that, I would say most lay people don't even know that LLMs can do more than that. And so,
and I would say even further, they don't know what's happening. And because they don't know what's happening when they type into the box, they might ask things that it would not be good at all. Like, what stock should I buy today? How would it possibly know that? It can't know that. And
well, it might know some stuff, but yeah, it's not gonna, like, I bet it would probably say do the SPY or whatever, but like, you know, so it can probably pull from literature on like what are good stocks in general. But yeah, it's not gonna know things, you know, or you could say like, how do I let my sister down easily or something? I don't know. Like personal problems. I don't know what you're doing. You got a weird sister. So you can do a lot with AI, but yeah, a lot of people don't know what it's actually doing. They just think it's like a robot that can do anything, but like it's not. But can it be? And that's where we get into what you've been hearing a lot about is agents, right? Agents in AI, which I would say is basically the idea of an LLM that has been empowered with the ability to do things, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think in a way it's going to be the future. I don't know if I love the branding of agents because it feels too markety and too
Yeah.
hype cycle. Um,
Well, I
at the
was
end of the
listening to
day,
NPR today and
yeah.
somebody said agents, it sounds scary. So I thought that was funny.
Well, we already have applications, right? Like, let's think of like Oracle ERP. There's probably like maybe 10,000 different permutations of checkboxes. And have you ever heard of Oracle like ERP, like those?
I mean, I know Oracle, but
Yeah,
I
basically
think I know what it is, but I'm
they
not a
have all
back
these like
end guy.
legacy applications that you could use to like run your business, and the idea is they integrate with like everything, and they can manage anything, and it's almost like a programming language. Like you have to learn it, you have
Hmm.
to know. There are people who spend years learning it, right? Like
I've heard of like the Microsoft stuff, like they have their
my
what's it called?
father-in-law is an accountant, and like on their resume they'll have to put like, oh, I'm trained in this tool or this tool. Like you have to get really good at your
Right.
tools, right? And that's the main thing I don't think people are paying attention to, is like that's not going to be a requirement, I think, as much anymore. I might be
Well, you
wrong.
know what's a good example for that is in the image side of AI is before you had to be really good at Photoshop to be able to remove backgrounds from a photo or something like that, or remove but now with AI, you can just say, "Hey, AI, do this for me," and essentially the AI is in a way, it's not actually, but in a way, it's almost like using a tool for you to
Yeah,
remove a background or something like that, and so that's how we move into the realm of agents, and there are like tool usage of AI is a thing that's been around for a bit. Uh, I'll have to add it in the links. There's a Google talk from 2017 um, about using reinforcement learning with tool usage. That's actually really cool, and I feel like that's kind of hit the back burner since 2017 is when Transformers also came out, and so that's been all everyone
and
talks
now we're
about,
gonna
which
have to
is
figure out how to
the backbone
glue
of LLMs.
we're gonna have to figure out how to glue both of them together, right? Where no, bad tool, bad, use this one, right? And
Mm-hmm.
figure out how to put them together. Although I would say reinforcement learning hasn't proved very helpful for LLMs in certain circumstances, right? At least a lot of people are complaining about it on OpenAI's side.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think part of the problem is, and like Mark Zuckerberg said, this is they've just found the more data you give the LLMs, the better they get. So I think some of these improvements people are seeking by incorporating other techniques and tools from the wider like AI and ML space are like second in concern as compared to let's just make bigger models.
Yeah.
You know, um, but I think we will see. The future will incorporate a lot of these things together, and that's kind of like what we've been doing and some of the stuff we've been building is we're not just relying on an LLM to generate an answer based on an input. We're doing other things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So like
But
with the ERP example, right? Like
mhm,
those systems can do like 10,000 things or whatever, and we still need them to do 10,000 things, and we want that to be written in code, hard coded, right? For almost everything, at least for now, just for reliability. But steering is, I think, where agents kind of come into play, where you have all of these discrete actions that your program can take. How do you direct it? And that's where I think agents can like really come in, and then you can meet your users halfway. They don't really necessarily have to learn every on and off switch. Like for example, for one of the agents we've worked on recently, um, we could have put in a little toggle, and we could have said location search by city and state, type it in, or drop on a map, right? but that's not as useful as I need someone in Austin, Texas. I need someone in, Arizona. I need someone in Utah, whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's much easier to just type it out like you're talking to a person. And so that's why.
And then
Um,
we handle essentially on the back end the tool usage of, okay, now let's limit based off of, uh, you know, uh, latitude and longitude where people are actually located, right?
yeah.
Um, and
And that's still
and
a
I
discrete action. Like that's something you
mhm.
still have to build. Like so this you can't just expect these models to do everything for you. You still have to build on your side the tools that they're calling. And I think it's even a mistake to say that they're calling anything because they aren't, right? And
Yeah,
we could talk more about that. But
yeah, and although like some people may be like, well, I can go to ChatGPT and say what are the best restaurants in Phoenix or whatever, and it will give me some restaurants that are in Phoenix. The problem comes when accuracy is important as well. When sometimes it will make up restaurants in Phoenix. Not every answer the LLM gives you is actually true to what exists in reality. And the LLM really has no way of knowing that unless you're using some kind of tool to double check, right?
yeah,
And so I would say we're talking about function calling. Kind of the earliest implementation I saw of function calling was web browsing, right? Which is
mhm,
essentially like executing a Google search, collecting the results, and then producing an answer based off of that. And that's something that OpenAI included into some versions of Chat GPT. I believe they included it in the Bing version first. I don't know if that's right historically, but that's where I remember seeing it. Is they're like, okay, now Bing allows you to ask LLM questions and then get an answer based off of like the top Bing results. I can't say Google results, I guess, but that's like the classic for probably like that's the hello world for function calling, wouldn't you say?
yeah. And something that I think is interesting is that there are a lot of cases at the beginning where the model would argue with you and be like, "No, you're wrong." And I had that quite a few times where I was like, "Hey, look, I want to use this one coding library, and they weren't trained on the most
Uh-huh.
recent update." And I'd be like, "You're wrong. That's not it. You should have been trained on this." And then they would argue with me because they were trained on more tokens of the previous version than on the new version. And so they
Uh-huh.
might have had a little bit of context, but not very much. Or they had nothing at all because these things move so fast. And something that I think is interesting is that Meta AI had their system prompt leaked recently. I don't know if you had a chance to like read that
I
today.
didn't read through the whole thing. I saw it though,
But one thing
yeah.
that was really interesting is it said essentially like don't argue with the user if they have information you don't, and just almost basically assume they're right.
Yeah,
If
the customer's always right clause.
Yeah, because people will ask questions about stuff that just happened, right? Like, can you
Right.
imagine if
Right.
someone
Like,
were to
oh, what
ask,
did Donald Trump say in Madison Square? Go ahead.
yes, yes. Or did Trump just get shot and is like, as of December 2023, I have no knowledge of blah 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 blah. It's like, or
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it wouldn't even tell you that, right? It would just be like, no, of course Trump didn't get shot, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't know that. And so I think it's really interesting that they did that, and I think we'll probably start seeing a shift there where as we figure out how to like put the right context in to your prompt, then we'll probably see them become more like reasoning engines rather than like relying on it to produce the right output. You figure out how to source it, and then it'll rearrange the right output. Does that, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense? That feels like where we're headed.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there's definitely stuff out there that's along those lines now. Right. So function calling, why should we care about it? And maybe what are some like other basic use cases? You know, I mentioned like the ability to search the web that can improve the generation, but what are some other reasons you wouldn't rely just on a base model? Can you think of any?
Yeah, like timeliness of
What I
data.
thought of as like a customer service bot. There's a lot
Yeah,
of function needed there.
absolutely. let's say you're calling a customer service bot, they and
You want to
you
check the status of your shipment or whatever
yeah, it's going
you
to have to
ordered.
look up the status of your shipment. The weights weren't trained on that. It couldn't possibly know that data, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
where injecting context into the prompt dynamically and deciding when to retrieve that context is extremely powerful and extremely useful. And like, what if there's a sale going on today, right? The model wouldn't know that.
Right.
You have to inject that. And so, you're talking to a pest control company chatbot, which is probably going to be huge in the next year or two, because who wants to deal with pest control people, right? One company is
Mm-hmm.
going to make a model that sells pest control really well, and then they're going to eat everyone else up because people would rather just type and talk to a pest control company or something and then just get the cheapest deal, move on with their life, right? So that's a great, that's a great example, because
Ooh, that just
you're,
gave me a new idea.
you're, yeah, well, let's not tell everyone our idea. Let's keep
No,
it.
not give it out for free. Well,
We
no,
can give it
I
out.
will because
We don't
it's
have time.
unethical and I don't want to build it.
Oh,
But my idea is um, build a model that can predict how much they think someone would pay for something, and then set the price on the fly. So, like, okay, we're talking to a guy who's just gonna slap down his credit card no matter what price we say. Charge him three
oh,
hundred bucks.
this IP address is in Beverly Hills, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, we need to do that. It's probably totally illegal. Like FEC would get after us,
Yeah.
but that would be a cool model to build.
It'll be like you watch Arrested Development, right? How much could a banana cost? $5? $10?
$10, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and
So
that's true now with inflation, right?
yeah, that is true.
Banana does cost $10.
Yeah. Um, but okay, Zach. Now, how about you tell me what actually is the model executing code? Is it actually doing the? Is it actually calling a function at all? What's happening?
Well, that's my question.
Oh, for me? Yeah.
No, but I mean, as I understand it, and as I've seen in like LangChain, is you can pre-build essentially some code, a function, right? Like a block of code, and if the LLM decides that criteria has been matched, then it goes and executes that function.
Yeah.
Along with that, there's sometimes like, so for like the checking the status of a shipment, right? You're selling products. You don't want to pay, some teenage girl $10 an hour to work from home to answer your customer service emails. So you do an AI to do it. The idea is, in order to execute some code that looks into your database to see the status of a shipment, it would need to know the customer's ID, right? And it would need to know the customer's uh, shipment, or like order ID, right? And
Yeah.
maybe like an item ID. Like
I
this
was
is
actually,
like the nuts
I
and
was
bolts of
actually,
how it works, right?
yeah, I was actually hoping to steer you in a different direction, because
Oh,
I
what
think
do you want to talk
I
about?
think the I think the proper way to think about it is tokens in, tokens out, no matter what. And
Mm,
what you want is you want a format
I see what you're saying.
of a response that you can parse properly. And for the bot that we worked on recently, that's all we're doing, right? Is there's no lane chain, there's none of that bloatware.
No.
We just say respond in this JSON format, and that's it. And so then we read the JSON and then we execute the function. What I think is the most appropriate way to think about it is you are asking the LLM to constrain its outputs to a specific format that you can use to make a determination on what to do, right?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah. But also I think and part of what I was getting at is the function calling requires a bit more accuracy than just like, hey, give us some info. You know what I mean? I don't know.
what do you mean?
So
Yeah,
certain functions you don't like to check the status of an order. You need to know those IDs to pull it from the database, right? To
absolutely.
like
Yeah,
execute that SQL code to
yeah,
say select where this is that and that and that,
yeah.
right? To say okay, it's 2 days out. Unless you load it all
So
into
so if I was going to
context,
do
I
it
don't know.
without, so if I was going to do it without like LangChain or anything else,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
would and they said, oh, I need to check the status of my order, then maybe the JSON would say like check order status true or something like that. And then it would have
Yeah.
like ID null. And then you would say in your thing like, hey, you'd have a prompt for the response and be like, hey, sure thing, we'd love to check your order status. What's your ID?
Send us your order number or
Yeah,
whatever.
send us your order number or your ID first. And then you go back and then you are parsing JSON again and you're saying, and you know what? That's another thing we could talk about that I'd love to keep going into is like, is JSON even the right way to do this? Because it's what everyone has landed on. Like that's been the consensus, but it's not the cheapest per token. And it's probably not the most human readable, which is a good corollary to LLM readable, right?
Well, and if anyone's listening who's not technical, basically JSON is how all web data storage works,
Yeah.
basically.
I might be
So,
getting too much in the weeds depending on where you fall on the spectrum.
yeah. So this is basically like, I think they landed on it logically because it's what you use for an API call, so
Yeah. Yeah,
it makes sense.
So when you're starting, right, like you don't want to innovate on everything right out the gate, right? Like I don't think people could have even understood it if ChatGPT was like, oh, by the way, we created ChatGPT Son and it's so much better. Trust us, and you have to
Right, it'll save you X amount of dollars. And
yeah. If they just like said like it would feel like almost talking to an alien because it would just be so different, right? So like you have to move the market, and they have moved the market a lot as like the main, I guess, proselytizer. I wouldn't even say they're the biggest player, but the main proselytizer of this. They've moved the market a lot, but I think they know that it's a dance and you have to work with people. And so I'm really curious about like what are the next steps going to be, and I really am not sure if that format is going to be the one that we stick with moving forward.
right, because there's no reason an LLM has to stick with something a more strict language needs.
Yeah,
Right.
all we do need to find something that meets in the middle, right? Something that a computer can easily parse and something that an LLM can easily generate, right? And efficiently generate. That would be another thing, right? Because you at the end of the day, you're paying for every single token that's going through that model, input and output, right?
Right, which just means long, bad, short, good, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, I guess so that's kind of how function calling works. I guess probably a terrible explanation if you're new to it, but that's the idea. So we talked about OpenAI. Do we want to talk about exactly how they're doing it, or just skip ahead
Yeah.
and talk about BAML?
No, I want to talk about that because I have something pulled up. So let me.
Yeah, if you want to share, go
And if
ahead.
you're totally lost because I got too in the weeds, I apologize, but maybe this will make a little bit more sense. So can you see that?
Yeah.
Do I need to zoom in a little?
I think
Is that a little
probably,
better?
but that's probably fine.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Let's share this. Oh, no, that didn't work. All right. Yeah. So this is an example of like a JSON schema. So you can, when you're doing a function call, you can pass something like this in, right? And that would describe like more or less what you're expecting back, or what function you want to be able to call, what are the arguments, those type of things. So you can see that it's very explicit. So like you could read this even without too much background knowledge. You might not know what an integer is. That's just a number. This one has a number here. A string is just text. That would be a better way to say it. But you can see there's a lot.
It's just information stored in it's kind of a structured format, with these little labels and then the content of the label separated by the little colon in between.
So I guess
and you can have nested information as well.
So my question for you, Zach, is like if this didn't exist, right? And this is the type of structure that OpenAI is using under the hood. If this didn't exist, one, do you think this is the right sequence of tokens to produce the right output? My gut tells me this isn't where we're going to stick with.
Well,
Yeah,
with stuff like this, for LLMs can infer a lot of this information that previous tools and solutions couldn't infer, right? So like JSON data is usually like super dense like this, you know? And you don't need to tell an LLM what's a string and what's an integer usually, I would say. Maybe
yeah,
you do, but but like it seems redundant, right? And you're wasting tokens, which means wasting money, right?
yeah. I'd also say that like if you have like look right here, like they have a category right in this spot right here. You
Uh-huh.
could easily see that a category might be a fixed set of values, and so
Right.
people might think, okay, function calling, like if you're just a regular programmer, you probably would see this and like you pass in your schema and you're like, well, the LLM's going to obviously understand it exactly right if I just get the technical formatting perfect. But I think that
Mm-hmm.
what's more important is like if you're going to do function calling, right? And so you start like coming up with your functions and you start creating your model. When it comes down to like descriptions and things like that, I think you need to think about it as this is a mini prompt. This is a sub prompt that tells you how to use this, right?
Mm.
And in fact, I almost would want to like invert the order. We'd have like you probably would
Yeah,
have
it would
to do
almost
that.
make more sense to just tell the LLM, "Hey, this is this, by the way,"
Yeah,
inside the
inside the
data. Yeah.
JSON schema. In fact, I did that recently on a project I was working on. I just thought it clicked for me. I was like, no, this isn't a description for a human. This is a mini prompt. This is a sub prompt in my prompt to help guide
Mm-hmm.
the LLM to picking the right option out of an enum field, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
so,
because technically the JSON to an LLM is not strictly interpreted either. Like you'll run into issues every once in a while where like it'll actually stray from the JSON you give it sometimes.
yeah,
I don't know if you've run into that, but
yeah, no, totally. And I was having that with the tool that we worked on for a little bit.
yeah,
And so I had to add some few shot prompting, which we could talk about maybe another time, but you give examples within your prompt so that the model can understand better what's happening.
right. Like do this. We want you to return something like this, or this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about BAML because I think
Yeah, you tell me about it because I'm new to this one. You're the expert here.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So essentially, it's pretty similar. So OpenAI my understanding of OpenAI is that you're giving them a Zod if you're using TypeScript or JavaScript or a Pydantic model. So you define your objects, right? And you say this should look like this should look like this. You add that to your function calls, right? You're defining everything, right? And then it gets converted to JSON schema. Well, these guys who are not getting enough love decided hey, look, why are we even doing this? Like it doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be a JSON schema. Let's just make our own language that will output JSON still, but we don't want it to be constrained in the same way because we know deep down, right? Deep down more like we know intuitively that this is just a series of tokens that's getting passed in. And so it doesn't
mhm.
need to conform to a specific JSON schema. There's no extra value in that, right? And they found that if you
Well,
look
other
at
than I guess interfacing with other things, you might want a specific JSON output. But
yeah, so
yeah,
what
sorry
they're steering it towards a JSON output. They're just not using
uh
JSON schema for the
for
definition.
the prompt,
Yes,
right?
yes. And they found, I think their claim to fame here, right, is that with GPT 3.5, it outperforms 4.0, um, uh, like using JSON schema. So their way of structuring this is actually more effective than what is currently being done within OpenAI itself, right?
This is like a souped up Volvo sleeper car beating like a Tesla Plaid on the drag
Yeah,
strip,
yeah.
right?
So, where is the output? I want to see what it looks like. Let's find it.
They got a comic.
Yeah, we got a comic. All right, they're making fun of themselves here because, yeah, they're saying, well, why do we have to do everything else? Let me find an output because it was pretty simple. Why do they not? Actually, no, this is it right here. This is what BAML looks like.
Yeah.
It's just this, right?
Uh-huh. And
And
so from putting on my like newbie eyes, this kind of looks like JSON-ish, but obviously it's not. Um, but it looks like we've got some classes, then we've got some functions or a
yeah,
function.
this right here is extracting the resume. So it's a function, but it's basically saying coerce whatever this resume is. So this is the function right here, right? And this
Uh-huh.
is what I was kind of getting at before with like the whole, like you are doing the function calling, right? So it's saying this is the entire prompt, right? It just has the resume here, and then it has their output format, which I'm not sure if it looks exactly like this, but I think it's pretty much like that. And then it has the JSON output right here. So you could see that this is way tighter, more verbose, right, than
Uh-huh.
what we had before. And so what you're asking it to is get just specific data from this based on the schema. So we could probably play with it here. Let's see if that. I want to see what that raw text looks like. That's actually my issue with OpenAI is that they want you to.
And I'm thinking that the version of this in JSON would look like what, like a resume template JSON schema that you try to fill out. Is that how it
Yeah,
would be?
yeah. I mean,
And
you
you'd
could
have
see
to
that
write a
this would be
big
a lot
prompt
bigger.
saying fill it out this way.
Yeah, yeah. Where?
Mm-hmm.
Let's find this. I want to
I'm
see.
following you.
Yeah, I know. I just want to see their raw output.
There's a video.
Yeah. All right. We can watch this
Hey,
video.
everything's updating in real time,
Pause it for a
which
second.
makes it really.
Is this language strict, or is it just kind of like I guess I'm not sure what the classes are like, the keywords, are they actually doing anything here, or is it
Yes, yes.
just a
I
style?
believe that this is. If we go back to BAML, I'm pretty sure it's actually they actually use the same thing. So they actually use Pydantic
Got it.
and Zod models, if I remember right. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
Pydantic or Zod.
Got it.
Oh wait, let's see. Oh, maybe not. Oh yeah, yeah. No. It does use Pydantic under the hood. So yeah, it does. Because like the main thing that they're offering, and let's maybe skip ahead to find it. Because
Mm-hmm.
where is it? I want to see the. Yeah. Okay, look. Answer in JSON using the schema. You can see that that's way less verbose. It is a JSON. It's not technically a JSON object. That wouldn't parse, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
Right,
wouldn't parse as a JSON object. But
but it looks like a JSON enough that
yeah,
an LLM can produce the parsable proper JSON.
and that's probably something you could speak to more is like you want high quality tokens or high quality text in your prompt. So having noise is going to lower your quality, and that's probably why
Yeah,
they.
and if you're looking at this, basically the bottom looks like the actual output. And so
No,
you're seeing they've put quotes around the text. They've done all that where the kind of example um, doesn't have all of that same information. So it's just a more simply stored version of it. But yeah, the more stuff you put into your prompt, the more you risk the output going off the rails typically. Although that's not always true. Sometimes you just want a big prompt to do stuff, but
that's
you need
why
to
I
be
think
careful how you
like
organize it.
signal. Yeah, I think signal versus noise, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if we go back to the JSON, like just keep this
Yeah, like
in.
I've seen some prompts where people give their in their prompt they give a little pep talk to the bot.
Yeah,
Hey,
and they
you're doing
probably
good,
thought.
little bot.
Yeah, and they probably think that works because of the few times where like you say, "Oh, I'll give you $100 if you give me the right answer," or "Do this, or I'll
Yeah.
kill myself." Right? Um, but that is. I think those are few and far between, and it's a lot better to just be explicit and like think about it like a robot that is doing exactly what you say. Um,
Mm-hmm.
don't try and reason with it. It could get off the rails if you try and like talk to it too much like a person, right?
Yeah, actually, I talked about this with Loki on Twitter,
Oh yeah,
where um, sometimes in prompting, you the one I've run into the issue with is in advertising. I would try to have it make social media posts, and it always includes stupid emojis, usually a rocket ship emoji or a light bulb emoji. I'm like, I don't need a rocket ship or light bulb in this tweet. Please just give me a tweet. But like anytime you ask for a social media post, ChatGPT will be like, rocket ship, do you want to take off? And it's like, don't do rocket ships. I don't need a rocket ship emoji in this post, please.
that
Like,
casts a different light into all of the stupid LinkedIn posters on Twitter right now.
yeah, every post now on LinkedIn has a rocket ship. Every marketing email you have, if you look, will have a rocket ship. I bet if you searched in your email for a rocket ship emoji, you'd probably get a bunch of AI generated text.
Yeah,
But anyway, so I would prompt and I would be like, no emojis. Do not use emojis. And it might do it for like one or two, but as the prompt got longer and I was editing it, it almost, what I realized is the more I talked about the use of emojis, the more it used emojis, even though I was saying do not do it. And I was talking to Loki about this because he was saying it seems like there was kind of a change from like GPT-2 to GPT-3 where it was much better at interpreting not, like I am not this or not that or don't do this, like negation essentially. Um, and I don't think there was anything physical to the models that actually changed that. I think the models just got bigger and better at recognizing negation as something to keep in mind. But even with 3.5 and 4, I've had that same issue, and I started calling it the the pink elephant problem, where it's like, don't think about a pink elephant. Well, that's what you're thinking about. And I think LLMs
yeah,
similarly have that same problem, where if you say, hey, don't include any pink elephants in the output, it's always going to include a pink elephant in the output, right?
yeah,
Um, and so I think you run into that same thing with like prompting, and that's what we're talking about with the noise. Is like, if you put anything in there, the LLM is going to give it attention. This is an attention model. And
yeah,
so the if you add something, unless you somehow have access to like the negative prompt where it actually negates the weights of it, but that's getting into some weeds. Um, but yeah, like, so you need to be careful about like what you include in your prompt, basically, is the where that rant got me.
yeah. No,
But yeah,
the pink elephant problem. You should write a paper for, how do you say it?
yeah, we should put that out.
Or yeah, whatever. I don't even know how you.
I'd probably have to like actually test and get some like quantifiable data, like please generate this and do not include something obvious to include. You know?
Yeah. So you could see where this is so tight. How many, like, that's, 7 lines right
Yeah,
there. Right. And then we go back to, let me
and
show
that
you
could
right
produce
now.
a JSON
Yeah.
of
And this
quite
is a
some
different,
size.
this is a different example, right? This is not the
Mm-hmm.
same one-to-one comparison, but, type
Similar idea.
type was on its own line, right? Like you could see this instead of
Uh huh.
ID could just be ID colon integer, right? And then if you
Yep.
need to, we could probably put a description right above it or something, right? And then the description might even just be, instead of writing description colon, you could just say um, use ID is used for blah 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 blah, and that might work just as fine. I don't know, right?
I saw in the BAML demo they were using like decorators, right?
Yeah,
For some of that stuff. I don't know if that was part of the JSON schema stuff, but I saw some decorators somewhere.
yeah. Let's skip
I guess not
ahead.
in this part. Maybe I think it was on their website, but yeah.
I think they kept. Where was it? Because I think this
Oh,
was.
they have them on the GitHub. They have some
Oh, okay.
decorators
Yeah,
with a description.
yeah. But I think I think BAML is a great example of why you should think about it as how good can your model do at returning structured JSON. right? And what the people at BAML are doing is they're figuring out how to get structured JSON back as in a much easier way, right? And everyone has decided that JSON is the move, but we have YAML, we have TOML, we have lots of other formats that
I'm always using YAML.
Yeah, and people hate YAML, but honestly, YAML looks a little more human readable than JSON pretty frequently, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Oh
So
yeah, JSON is like that's actually the in teaching the AI course that I teach. Getting students to figure out JSON is one of the hardest things of the course because like it's such a foreign thing to someone who's never gotten into it, but like it's hard to like explain. And then like when you get them to do their first API call and they get a JSON response, and it's just this wall of text, unformatted,
yeah,
because it doesn't even have like the tab and
yes, yeah.
stuff. And they're like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm like, okay, well, you gotta
Man, they have it good.
follow it
Do you
through.
remember XML?
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
worse.
it's way worse, right?
Mm-hmm. I
And
used that my first chatbot experience way back in the day in like 2015. We had this huge XML output that we had to parse, and this guy had written some VBA code to do it.
yeah,
So that was fun.
honestly, that's another thought is like, what if, like, has anyone done the experiment? Because what if actually returning XML is a better way to return data from an LLM? Like, that's not necessarily more efficient, but what if it understands
Mm.
that better because you
You
have
have
like
the end
a
tag.
beginning token, right? So you'd have like name and then an end bracket and then the text right inside. I don't know
Yeah.
for sure, but that might actually
Like if it would be better at keeping the boundaries of the different
yeah,
generations or
yeah.
outputs.
Maybe we're missing something, but like there's
Return to XML
yeah, no, and that might actually be
with a V for the U in return.
yeah, and then that kind of goes to another thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is this, and like you could see
Yeah, what are we looking at here?
we're looking at the Berkeley function calling leaderboard. I think this is the kind of standard. Are you aware of better ones than this?
I am not a benchmark cell,
Yeah.
so I don't really know what people are looking at. But yeah, I think this one looks pretty comprehensive. I was trying to find, because I just looked at this a little before we started talking. I was trying to find what some of the tests actually are. Have you seen any of that?
No, no, I
Okay.
haven't.
We'll have to look up
I
what
just
they
took it
are.
at
There's
face
there's
value that
there's
they knew what
links
they
and
were
stuff,
doing,
but
but
yeah, like what information are they actually like retrieving or whatever they're trying to do, I
that's
guess.
horrific. I thought that you know everyone's talking about how Gemini's long context is so useful, but you see their multi-turn, which would be like multiple steps in a conversation, right? Their
It's worse,
multi-turn
yeah.
is worse than these models that have less context. And so see
Do you know
that
what functionary medium is?
I've never used it. Yeah, I've never even
Okay.
heard of Meet Kai. So they
Or
must
tool
be
ace 8B?
no, no. So they must be
Yeah, I don't
super
either.
fine tuned on just like doing function calling.
Apache. Oh, that's license. Huawei. Okay, I know Huawei.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I do one. I'm always skeptical of benchmarks. I'm not one who's like, did you see the benchmark? Did you see the benchmark? Like, I don't care. But it is kind of the only way we have to like quantify how good these things are.
and
Um.
I think it's interesting that you see the FC here, and then you see some of these say prompt, right? This one
Mm-hmm.
says prompt, Gemini Flash prompt, right? So I think in certain
Yeah.
circumstances, using the built-in, and this is where I think the big players want to vendor lock you, and like, oh, use our template, and it'll make it really easy to do your function calling, right? Well, then if the APIs are slightly different, like they are with Google versus OpenAI, that's probably part of why like Gemini gets no love is because they decided they're going to do their model or their API their way, and everyone else was like, well, everyone like we're trying to compete with OpenAI, so let's just like make it completely compatible, and then they can swap really easily. Well, like my understanding of this prompt is that it's like we're not going to rely on the vendor parsing our JSON properly and telling us what function to call, we're just going to do it ourselves. So we're going to, structure our own format, and then we're going to get something back, and then we'll decide to call it or not call it, or how we want to handle that structured JSON.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, I see what it's doing too.
Oh yeah, what's going on?
I looked up what some of the tests are, but I didn't find the test, but I found the API keys that you need in order to run the tests. So they have API keys for Yahoo Finance, Amazon Data, Urban Dictionary, Time Zone by Location, OMDB, which is the movie database one, and Geocode. So they're probably saying, like, giving it questions like, what is the stock price of X right now, or whatever, and then trying to have it execute that actual search. And like Urban Dictionary, I assume they're like, define this word, and they retrieve the definition. So it's a bit more rigid than some of the real world use cases you might have, and may not be representative of actual data. But I think this is close enough to like how good it is at actually retrieving real information using function calling. So yeah.
I mostly wanted to point out the fact that, number 6 on the leaderboard is actually returning just a prompt, right? Not even using the built-in function calling.
Not even using function
and
calling.
even this one. And this is where I think something like BAML comes into play, because if you decide that you want to use one of these vendors, right, like OpenAI, as more than just like string in, string out, then you kind of start getting married to their solution. And maybe it's going to work totally fine for you, but this marketplace is moving so fast that it's like, you don't know who's going to be the top dog tomorrow. And if I was going to build a business, I would really try to optimize for not getting vendor locked right now, even if there was a little bit more work on my end, because you really don't want to be stuck and have to, work a lot to pivot, right? When essentially what you're doing is you're doing string interpolation, right? Like you're deciding when and where to put your prompt, right? And like that's it. You have a prompt in, a prompt out, right? And so I would be wary because, let's say you're stuck on 4.0 using their function calling right now. Well, in December, Gemini 2 is going to drop, and it's probably going to have maybe more than a 2 million token context window, and it might be the very top of the leaderboard. They have the most compute of anyone, and it seems like they've been really accelerating there. So I would not be surprised if Google like turns out to just, because it's so giant, they might just end up being just smoking everyone at the top of the leaderboard with their long context. It might be that like,
well, they've got a few other tricks up their sleeve too.
Yeah.
One, they've got adoption of users, in that everybody has a Gmail.
Yep.
And there's a lot of like assistant type use cases built into like having a Gmail or having like a Google Drive. That I feel like a lot of like Claude cells and OpenAI supporters are like not thinking about. And I guess like OpenAI is integrating with Apple and stuff like that, but still, I don't know. It's interesting because I do think at the end of the day, which is my favorite phrase, the real important part of these LLMs beyond benchmarks is like, how useful is it? And so if the first person to really figure out making it usable and actually do more than just like telling you who the 8th president was, it was Martin Van Buren, then like, it's got to be incorporated into tools intuitively, and it's probably going to be doing a mixture of function calling, RAG, and long context, which Google has been doing a lot of, like with their Notebook LM and like the fake podcasts and stuff.
Well, they have right now they have a Google One subscription where I think you get free access to Gemini, and they've started baking it in kind of haphazardly so far.
Yeah, the rollout hasn't been complete yet, And some of the stuff they showed at their last AI conference, like the Google, whatever it's called, they haven't actually implemented yet or done wide implementation. But they're basically promising like, hey, this is going to be integrated into all Google products. So like you can say, based on my emails, go do this thing for me. And
Yeah,
so
yeah, or even just
it's gonna be coming.
catch me up, or have I forgotten to follow up with anyone, right?
Yeah, right. Or follow up for me.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
any email that's outstanding, go reply to it and be
yeah,
nice or whatever, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So you can't really count them out yet. I'm really excited about the big players and their relationship with like the really small models that are like on prem that like we've used for some of
yeah,
the
yeah,
projects
like
we've worked
Gemma
on.
from Gemini or Llama
Llama
3.1
3.2, yeah, like
or
all
3.2,
those
yeah,
are really really cool because I
or
think
Phi.
yeah, yeah, Phi was okay, but I mean
It was
some
not
people
that
said it
great.
was all right, but Llama was really good in my experience. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well, and about that, I kind of hate that OpenAI has become so closed. And I feel like Google's heading that direction too, where they're just like not telling us what's happening. Like, are you function calling or are you not? Like,
Yeah,
because when GPT-3 first came out, you could manually adjust the what was it called? And not the is it the alpha? It was
temperature. Is that what?
temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could automatically adjust like the temperature. You could adjust the output context length. You can't do any of that on their API now. Like, I think you can, but like
On the
they're
API,
phasing
yeah.
it out.
But yeah,
They're phasing a lot of that stuff out, and like most of the new models that come out, they don't have those hyperparameters built into their models
hmm,
for the end user, which is super annoying to me because like I know what those things are and I could use them in a user interface. But like I get that if you show someone like a bunch of sliders of like temperature and output tokens, people just freak out and think it's not for them, you know.
yeah,
But I'm annoyed by it. But that's what they're going towards. It feels like. But yeah,
yeah.
Zuckerberg's cool. He's going open source more, which I like.
Yeah, Zuckerberg has like I don't know. He's stepped up in a way that like I didn't expect, but
Bezos followed Mystery Grove, if that's not a meme. So I feel like,
it might be,
you know,
but we'll see.
Bezos might be cool in the future. We'll get some
Yeah,
Amazon models. What's Amazon doing? They just got their Bedrock thing, right? I don't know.
I think Bezos is having too much fun with his girlfriend on his yachts to care about this stuff. So, and
Have they
people.
announced any models, AWS?
Uh, I mean, they have.
Like open source stuff,
I
especially, but
Oh, I just saw one. They did. There was one on Hugging Face. Oh man, I thought
well,
I
I mean
shared it.
they were one of the first API transformer models you could access, which with their Amazon Lex, which is the model behind Alexa, and it was using
Yeah.
transformers.
Um.
They didn't market it as good as OpenAI, so
Yeah. Oh,
and they
cool.
had
You
like
can
function
import
calling built
custom.
into it from the get go.
You can import custom models into their Bedrock, which is cool. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I know that they've done really good on incorporating open source stuff into their offering, but I'm surprised. Like, I'm surprised Apple and Amazon have just been like, nah, we're not going to make any models.
Yeah.
You know,
Huh. They
see,
actually have a. They have some fine tunes here. Let me share my screen again.
yeah,
We're
yeah, yeah.
getting way off of function calling, but I think this is.
Well, we're basically done with function calling. This is like the after party.
Yeah, yeah. If you're still here, then we're having a good time.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Kronos is theirs.
do you remember what Kronos is? I didn't.
Time series forecasting. That's not right.
Oh, okay. So like,
It's a transformer
oh,
time
what?
series model. I'm actually super interested in this because I work with a lot of people who do time series stuff, and I bet they would freak out if they heard about this. I mean, 6 million downloads. I guess we're just behind the times. Uh,
T5.
I know what T5 is, but
Wait,
so
is
that this is
T5
old.
transformer or no? It's not.
Yeah, it's text to text transformers with another T.
Okay.
Okay, so this is just a fine tune of T5 for time series. That's
Okay, yeah,
interesting.
they seem to do a lot of fine tunes. Like you see Mistral here.
Uh,
I thought they had one that they did themselves recently. What about recently created?
what's Amazon Quack? Oh, that's a data set.
Yeah, I swear they had.
AWQ. Yeah, it looks like it's just like fine tunes.
Yeah, I thought they dropped
I mean,
some.
it makes sense because it's hard to get into the space, I feel like, but you'd think they'd at least give it a shot, you know? I guess it's expensive. How many H100s do you want to use, you know?
Honestly, it could be that like their the style of their company. Like, what I've heard is they just work everyone like dogs, and I feel like you have to hit a good. I don't know. You got to hit a good balance. Shaolin AI is
There's
always
some
hiring.
experimentation
Yeah, Shaolin
happening, is
AI is
what you're
always
talking
hiring.
about.
By the way, so just send us your res. Just kidding. But we've got a
Yeah.
great company culture. Um, Options included. No pay yet, but
Yeah,
no, but
pay is TBD.
yeah, TBD. No, but I feel like there's a balance, right? Where like you get all these like really excited guys, and if you work them like 60 hours, a week on like a task, they don't have like the breathing room to be like, wow, let's like just do something fun that like might work, like the moonshots, and like I don't know, it doesn't feel like Amazon's very interested in like the fun skunk works types projects.
Well, and I mean, they built their Alexa model, so they have a custom transformer model with tons of training data.
Yeah.
So they probably are working on something, but I'm guessing they probably got taken by surprise with ChatGPT and haven't really solidified a strategy since then. Other than, I mean, it seems like their bid is like, hey, to run these models, you need to pay us, basically. And
Yeah,
so
which
and I think that's cool, but like it's weird that they aren't getting into the model game is all I think. Like, why not? You
I
know?
thought there was one that said like organization Amazon/science or something like that, and it was like
Uh-huh.
no, maybe not.
But I mean, either way, they haven't come out with like a.
Yeah, I thought they had like their own model that they made, but I think I'm yeah, someone just like I guess has an
Well,
Amazon.
they definitely have one with Alexa, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and
I don't know.
they
I don't know if they've released like the weights. They haven't released the weights of Alexa, as far as I know.
not your weights, not your model, as they say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Well, we went all
But
over the place, but I feel like
yeah,
we
I think
did.
that's it.
I feel like we did paint a good picture. If you're somewhat technical, I think we painted a good enough picture of like what's happening, what it is, and like how it's useful.
Also, we are an educational organization here at Shaolin AI. So if anybody has questions or you're like, hey, what the hell were you talking about? Just comment or let us know, message us. But we're planning on releasing more of these in the upcoming days. So if anyone's like, hey, can you guys explain this or talk to me about that? Let us know. We'll include it in. I think we're going to start kind of doing almost like a news roundup, probably too, weekly. So I'm not going to promise weekly. Everyone knows how that goes with me. Weekly podcast. That's what a novel idea. Um, but but we are also planning on covering papers as well, like new papers that come out, and kind of just talking about them more in a conversational style, because reading papers kind of sucks, and we want to make it less sucky so people can keep up to date
Yeah.
with what's happening in AI.
Don't
So
use Notebook LM to do it. Have us do it. We'll do it
have
for
us do it.
we'll do it for free.
Yeah, yeah. Don't use your tokens. I don't know how they charge.
Yeah, I don't know
Is
either.
it just unlimited? Because
I
that
think
you
it
could just
might be.
make like 100
Honestly,
podcasts and publish them. And
we might use that for our studying as well.
do they actually like what are the? Can you download an MP3 of that and then just post it as a podcast, or would they
Oh,
like
I'm sure.
copyright strike you?
I don't. I probably you can. I
Because
don't know.
honestly, like, that's a whole thing of like people on Spotify, like posting just songs with searchable names, but
Yeah.
they're just like crappy songs or like AI generated or algorithmically generated.
Hmm.
But like you could do that with podcasts now. Like, hey, we're doing a podcast on Skibbity Toilet, the Skibbity
Yeah.
Cast.
Yeah.
So little kids typing in Skibbity Toilet give you hundreds of thousands of views. But anyway,
and that would be,
we've thought of two
we'd be doing.
scams.
No, we that's what we should do, is we should market ourselves as skibbity toilet content, and we'll have children be driven towards ML and AI instead of brain rot nonsense. How about that?
Yeah, we'll be the Mr. Beast of AI.
Yeah,
I need to put that in my bio.
No, but seriously, if you we're still recording, so if you have any questions for us, just DM us on Twitter, Shaolin AI, and then just comment on YouTube, and we'll happily help you with your model, whatever you need. And yeah, we can get.
Or if you want to chat with us or argue with any of the points we made, let us know and we'll add you in.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll wrap up there. Also, as we mentioned, we run a course. If any of you want to get into this, reach out. We'll get you signed up for. There should be one next year, and then we'll also be keeping you guys up to date on anything we are building. We'll talk to you more about some of the stuff we're building, and also if you want to build with us, let us know. We're builders over here. All right.
Yes, we are.
Signing off. The Shaolin salute. I don't know. That's what we do.
That's what we do.
All right.